muggles! Today's video is a little bit about host clubs. I'm here with my cat and I will be talking a little bit about what host clubs are and my own experiences in host clubs, my opinion of host clubs, and finally a really shocking urban legend I heard in some host club circles. Okay, let's start. Okay, so the first time I actually heard about host clubs was before I came to Japan. I watched it in this YouTube documentary. It's still on YouTube, so you can watch it. It's called The Great Happiness Space, Tale of an Osakan Love Thief, and it's honestly incredible. I'll try to put it in the description. Please watch it. It's very illuminating and it shows the grittier side of host clubs. So the first time I watched that, it's kind of like an emotional roller coaster. You can see both good and bad points for why people visit host clubs, and also a kind of like insidious side of it and the bad effects that it can have on people. So but if you're thinking of visiting one, I really suggest that you watch that first, because it does really highlight the grim reality behind the system of host clubs. Okay, basically in a nutshell, host clubs are bars that you can go to where there are handsome men who dress quite flamboyantly, they have quite big hair, they're very good at speaking, and you just pay money to drink with them, and you're basically just paying for their time. Honestly, there's many different kinds of host clubs. There's very low range ones varying to quite expensive ones. There's different types of hosts. There's ones for all different kinds of types, and the scene itself is quite diverse. Like, I've only really been to the lower end host clubs and I've never spent more than 2,000 yen, but honestly you can end up spending millions and millions and millions of yen. So you have to be quite careful and you have to know what you're doing before you get into it. It's kind of like drugs in the sense that the first time you go it's quite cheap, and if you find one of the hosts that you like, and the next time you go you pay for his time specifically. It's called a shime. You can shime him and make sure that you'll get that host. That's when it becomes expensive, and of course usually you get like an hour of time, and if you want to extend that it gets more expensive. They also encourage you to buy drinks, and they really encourage you to buy champagne and things like champagne towers, and that's when it gets really expensive and it gets into like hundreds of thousands or even millions of yen. My first experience at a host club, I kind of quickly learned about the system. I was out with my friends and we decided to go drinking in Shinjuku, which are, you know, like where all the host and hostess clubs are. My friend was really experienced in host clubs and she asked me if I wanted to go. I honestly at first didn't really want to because I'm very anxious and my mind instantly goes to the worst situation that could happen, which was they would rob and then murder us. But she assured me that this wouldn't happen, and she showed me how to drink in host clubs for cheap. Basically, you find one of the scouts or catchers on the street who find customers for the host clubs, and you tell them that you're looking to go drinking at a host club and you don't want to spend more than X amount. We were quite cheap, so we just chose 1,500 yen, and he called around and he found a list of host clubs that we could drink at for 1,500 yen for 1 hour. So we picked from there and we headed on to the host club. Immediately when you arrive at the club, the hosts all welcome you. They say like "Irashaimase" or like whatever, or like "Welcome princesses." It depends on the club. I don't really remember because I was terrified. And you enter and you notice that it's very dark. Everything's shiny. It's a lot of soft kind of like sofa chairs pushed together. There's booths. It's quite, most clubs I've been to have been very small. It's a very intimate atmosphere. It kind of reminded me of like a disco because there's always like a tacky disco ball or something. And anyways, they lead you to your seats and you sit down. Depending on the day, the club, and who's working, they come over and they bring you some hosts that will sit at your table and talk with you. Your first time, I think they just assign you whoever, and so you're probably, if you're they can probably tell if you're gonna come back or not, and so they gave us like the really low, I don't want to say low quality, but the hosts are kind of new or the ones that don't get picked often. And it's your first time, so you can't really choose who you want to meet. So anyways, they just brought over some guys and they sat with us. I was very, very nervous, particularly because I've been in Japan for not that long. I could speak like relatively conversational Japanese, but I was still very shy. But honestly, they're very good at getting you to speak and they're good at conversing. So I felt comfortable almost immediately. We could drink as much shochu as we wanted for 1 hour. Shochu is a relatively cheap drink. It's quite strong, and you could choose if you wanted it with tea or water or cola. And the hosts are the ones that will pour the drinks for you. So it's honestly nice just having someone there tending to your needs and someone who seems like relatively interested in what you're saying. So honestly, my first time going, I don't remember it that much because I was quite nervous, but I had quite a good time. If you're going with 2 or 3 people, they normally give you 3 hosts, and sometimes they'll bring over new ones when you're sitting there, because the idea is to get you to choose one that you like and come back and see him and then spend a lot more money. So at the end of our introduction, our shokai, you're allowed to choose one host who will walk you out to the elevator and say goodnight, and also then exchange line information with you. Line is the chatting app that we mostly use in Japan, so it's a good way for the host to persuade you to come back to his club. I think this is where it pays to know what you're doing and be aware of the system, because I can imagine a lot of girls would be tricked by this, like, oh, this host must really like me because he exchanged information with me and he's chatting with me. But I think it's kind of a normal process and it's just to get you to come back. So as long as you're aware of that and aware that these are people that are just there, it's just their job, like it's their job to get you to come back, and you're aware of that and you just enjoy your time with them knowing that it's more just customer service, then honestly it's fine. But if you're kind of naive and you honestly think that these guys really want to be with you or spend a long time with you, then I think that's where it can be quite dangerous. So I visited maybe 2 or 3 times after that, and I had quite a good time. We always use a different one each time because the introductory period is quite cheap, and that's like maybe 50 host clubs in Kabukicho, so you can visit them all one time and probably circle your way back and they won't remember you. So that's a really cheap way to keep drinking. And honestly, for 1,500 yen for all you can drink for 1 hour, that's pretty competitive. On top of also getting someone who will talk to you, I think it's a pretty good deal. So my first few times going, I did it mostly for Japanese practice, because getting to speak to someone in your non-native language when you're not very good is a big ask. As someone who teaches English and used to work in eikaiwa, I kind of get it. Like, it sucks having to have a really bullshit conversation over and over. Like, hi, my name is blah blah blah. I like Pokemon. I don't like green peppers. That kind of thing, I get it. It's like annoying. And I can, like, speaking to foreigners who were speaking Japanese, that's what I sounded like for a long time. So it was hard to get people to converse with me, and that's why going there, at least they had a goal, which was to get me interested in them. So they really tried to make me feel comfortable, to make me not feel bad about my Japanese, and to keep the conversation interesting. And honestly, they're quite attentive. Like, they remember what you're saying and they have to at least pretend to be interested in it. But I started to become quite disillusioned with it quite early. And I remember specifically one time I went and they asked us if we wanted to sing karaoke with them, and I agreed, and they asked me what I wanted them to sing, and I said, like, I don't care, sing whatever you want. And their manager seemed really pushy, like they really wanted them to convince us to keep coming back. And the atmosphere was kind of weird. Like, you could tell that a lot was riding on this. The club maybe wasn't doing so well and they needed customers. So the hosts were quite on edge, and they started to sing. They I told them I was from England, so they decided that they would sing Beatles. And they decided to sing some Beatles song, and I said, oh, I don't really like Beatles, or some offhanded comment. And the manager hit the host, and he said, she doesn't like it, change the song. And he was trying to change the song quickly, and he was quite like jittery, and he put another song on, and it was just awful. And a few people I spoke to said that they specifically go to host clubs so that they can be mean to the hosts. And when I was there, I kind of felt like, how far, like what could you make them do? So I picked one, and I said, okay, you speak in like Osaka ben, Kansai ben, you speak in Okinawa ben, you speak in blah blah blah, and tried to get them to speak different kinds of Japanese. And they tried their best, even though they really couldn't because they weren't from those places. And the manager said, she asked you to do it, so do it. And they were like, nande or something. And I realized that it was just kind of awkward how hard they were trying to please me. And as someone who feels guilt quite a lot, I just felt bad for them. And then that kind of made me feel like I didn't want to be there anymore. So I didn't go for a really long time, and then my friend convinced me to go to this visual kei themed one where a lot of the members of the host club also in visual kei bands. And I thought that could be quite interesting, so I went, and one of them, I remember, he had his hair over his face, like this. And I noticed that he only did his makeup on one half of his face. I guess that he was kind of in a rush. And I remember moving his hair out of the way and seeing that half of his makeup wasn't done, and he was really embarrassed. And it was kind of funny. And I ended up exchanging information with him, and he invited me out on a date. And there's a thing that you can do with hosts where you pay them money to go on dates with you before you go to the host club, and it is extremely expensive. And I said, like, I don't have any money, I definitely don't want to do that. But he agreed that we could hang out outside of the host club system. And yeah, we went to an izakaya. Before I went, my friend said it was a really bad idea, and that he would probably try to force me to pay money or to go to his club or something like that. So again, I was quite anxious about it. But I met him, and we just went to an izakaya, we took pirikura, and we went to his apartment and just played PlayStation 2, which was kind of fun, and then I left. All in all, it wasn't a bad date. Not the best date I've ever been on, but also not the worst. And yeah, he was quite nice. But I saw that, like, particularly his apartment, he lived in one room. It did not have a bathroom or a toilet. It was like, his toilet was like across, it was like a complex. It was like really far away. And I honestly felt bad for him. He didn't have any furniture. He had like a bed, a PlayStation 2, a TV, and that was it. So I was like, definitely I wouldn't date this person seriously, and obviously he has no interest in having a girlfriend anyways. So it was just, yeah, it was nice. We used to chat sometimes, but we didn't take it any further than that. But all in all, not a bad experience. Actually, I think that the thumbnail for this video is actually from that date. But anyways, so that wasn't too bad of an experience. And again, I stopped going for a while, mostly because I just got bored of it. And once you can kind of see through the system, it does get quite boring. I also not a huge drinker anyways, and the only time, like the only way it really is fun is if you get at least a little bit drunk. And I remember the last time I went, the second to last time I was out with my friends, and they wanted to go to a host club, and I really didn't, and and they really pressured me to go, and I said, okay, we'll go. And we went, and they lined up the host that we could choose. My friends picked very young, handsome boys, and I remember there was one man who must have been in his 50s at least. And I chose him mainly because I'm a troll and I just wanted to troll my friends. And my friends were like, no, don't choose that one, he's old. I'm like, he seems nice, I choose him. And anyway, so this really old man, he had like a very nice host suit and everything, but he was very clearly an old man. He sat down with me and we talked a lot. He also could speak English, which was the first time I had met a host that could speak English. And he said that he was retired from his job and it was also like a little dream of his to one day work for a little bit in a host club, and it was the first time anyone had chose him as opposed to him just being put on someone's table. So he was very grateful. I had a fantastic service all night, and he told me about his grandchildren. Overall, one of maybe the best host club experience I ever had. So it was honestly quite a good time, and he was very wholesome. Then actually the final time I went, I really did see the very worst side of host clubs. Up until that point, I had only seen the lighthearted side of it because particularly myself, I'm not one to get tricked so easily, and I went going with the intention of just having fun and not falling in love or whatever, so it was fine for me. And also the friends I hung out with, they also understood the system and were aware of the dangers. But the last time I went, again, I was pressured to go, I didn't want to go, and I was kind of over it by that time. And when we went, the girl who got us to go, she's not my friend anymore, she said that she would pay for us to go. And I said, I guess that's the only way that I would go if you'd pay for me, because I'm not spending any more money in those places. And so we went, and I can't remember that much about that night. I don't remember any of the host faces or names or anything like that. Immediately she started to buy champagne. I've never bought champagne in a host club, mostly because I think that, you know, there's no point. Like, it's a terrible tactic. They're not going to like you anymore for buying them champagne. And a lot of hosts I've spoken to, like, they would make fun of customers that spend a lot of money. So she bought 2 bottles of champagne, and I said, you better be paying for this because I'm not. And she said, like, yeah, I'll pay. And the bill was very expensive. I don't remember how much it was, but I said, okay, bye, I'm leaving. And I think there were maybe 5 of us, and we went to leave, and she said, the bill's so expensive, you have to help me pay for it. And I said, I'm not helping you pay for it. You wanted to buy champagne, you wanted to come here. And that whole experience left quite a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't give her any money for that because it was her mistake, and I knew that she knew the system very well, but she was repeatedly tricked by it. And by that time, I've met so many people in Japan, I've met so many girls in Japan, and I've met people who would spend 500,000 yen in one night in a host club of money they didn't have. And I just don't understand why, when you're very aware of the system, how you can get tricked. I guess if you're drinking a lot and you've let your inhibitions go, even then, I've never been that drunk where I would spend 500,000 yen. It's just an obscene amount of money, and anyone who's willing to do that kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth anyways. As someone who didn't grow up with an incredible amount of money, I could not find a way to justify spending that much on nothing. Yeah, so that's mostly all the times I went that were relatively eventful. If you have any questions, please ask. If you have any of your own experiences, please put them in the comments. Then I want to talk to you about this urban legend I've heard. I heard this from a host, I've heard this from a foreigner, and I've heard this from someone else as well. Each time the details are slightly different, but the story is definitely the same. Okay, so legend has it, a long time ago in a host club, there was an older woman who used to frequent there, and she had a couple of her favorites. She was maybe 40 or 50. She looked very conservative. She always used to wear kind of like a suit, lots of jewelry, strong perfume. And one day, I guess she decided it was her last day that she would visit the host club. So she went, and as she was leaving, she said, this is my last day, so I want all of you to come outside. She had spent a ridiculous amount of money at this host club, so of course they all followed her outside. And she picked one of the hosts, she brought him to the curb, she went over to the roadside and she dropped her pants and she took a dump in the road in front of them. They were also at that time just too shocked. No one said or did anything. And she pointed at her favorite and she said, if you get down on your hands and knees and you eat it off of the road, I will buy you, I think it was a Bentley. She said, I will buy you a Bentley. And apparently, like, no one ever said if he did it or not, but everyone said that he quit the club immediately and the next day he was driving a Bentley. And the story, yeah, I've heard it quite a lot, and honestly I can really see this happening, particularly in Japan. Like, I've seen quite a lot of weird stuff happening in Kabukicho, so I could really see this happening. And it made me realize that a lot about host clubs is more about power than anything. The power that the hosts have over the customers and the power the customers have with their money over the hosts. And the whole situation is just a power struggle, and I really do find that very interesting. Okay, so finally I'm going to tell you my opinions about host clubs. I think that, like anything else, if you do it in moderation, it's probably fine. And it really depends on the person. I don't have an addictive personality, so I knew it would be fine for myself to go, I'm not going to get tricked. That being said, I know people who have been tricked incredibly easily by host clubs and spent a lot of money and really messed up their lives. And if you feel like you're one of these people, please, I'm urging you, don't go. Like, it's not going to end well for you. I think that hosts often get demonized because essentially their job is kind of lying. But once you go to this place, you're going for a customer service that they're providing to you. Like, I don't think they're entirely being not truthful to you. Like, you should kind of expect what's going to happen when you go. And I went thinking the first few times that, like, hosts of liars, they're terrible people, or maybe they're not educated and stuff like that. But actually most of the hosts I met were just doing it to pay for university, because of course university fees are very expensive. And honestly, it's same for sex work, strippers, OnlyFans, any stuff like that. People are just trying to survive. And same for these guys. Like, a lot of them were just really nice guys that were just doing it for a spell so they could pay for university. A lot of them do get trapped in that industry and end up being like 40 or 50 years old and never worked in any other industry, and it makes life harder for them, so that's also another side of it. But, you know, like, it depends on the person. And my dad told me one time that wherever you go, people are usually nice. And honestly, I found that the same way as host clubs. Like, everyone was nice. That being said, when money gets involved with things, it does complicate things. Hosts have lied to people a lot. I mean, they do lie. They'll tell you that they want to be your boyfriend. They'll tell you all kinds of things. And I've met a lot of people that felt really betrayed by hosts. But I think it's also up to you to be the one to not fall for their lies and try to just be aware of the situation you're in, and that it's just a customer service job, like a maid cafe or a barista smiling at you, anything else like that. If you come to Japan and you want to try it out, honestly, I, give it a go. I would suggest that you give yourself a budget, say I'm not going to spend more than this amount, and when you go to the club, also tell them that you don't plan on spending on more than a certain amount. And I would definitely suggest going with someone that has been before, because they're going to be more knowledgeable about the kind of things to look out for. There are a lot of risks as well. There are host clubs that have suddenly charged an extortionate bill, but if that does happen to you, I think that you can just go to the police box and tell them, and they'll probably sort it out for you. Those kind of clubs also do work in a gray area, and they are kind of affiliated with gangs and stuff like that, so there's also that side of it. If you don't want to get involved in any of that, then don't, because there's no real need to. I had a personal interest in it because I thought it would be interesting, so that's why I went. Finally, I wouldn't suggest having a host as a boyfriend, mostly because a lot of people I've met who have dated hosts, seriously, it didn't really work out well. Obviously there's going to be jealousy involved. Hosts do have to lie, and sometimes they get caught in a pattern of lying, which is another thing that happened. And hosts, particularly in this economy, they don't make that much money. Like, you have to be quite a top host to make a ridiculous amount of money. It used to be a little bit different maybe 20 years ago, but now I don't think, I feel like the majority of hosts aren't really making that much money. So I mean, unless you really fall in love with someone and you can't help it, then I would suggest just avoiding that entirely. Okay guys, thank you for watching my video. I'm not sure if it was interesting or not. Please let me know, or if anything else you want me to talk about. Stay safe. If you have time, do watch the documentary I mentioned, because it is very, very interesting. And yeah, see you guys soon. Bye!